Bottom line, make good music. For Dirtybird, it really doesn't matter how many followers you have. Make a good track that catches our ear. I mean, we do listen to every single demo that comes in. I think for the regular dance labels, like I said, like Dirtybird, Defected, that type of stuff, it's literally just send in good demos.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Headliner Mindset Podcast. Today's guest is the label manager for one of the biggest labels and brands in the house music scene, Claude Von Stroke's Dirtybird Records. He has almost 20 years of experience working in the music industry and has helped countless acts go from 0 to 100. This is Deron Delgado.
Hey, man. How are you?
Thanks for being here. Good to see you again. I didn't even realize that we actually had met many years ago. So good to be reconnected.
Yeah, for sure.
So, man, let's go ahead and jump right in. What is your role at Dirtybird, and what is it specifically that you do over there?
Yeah, so a label manager for Dirtybird. Been running the label for about 9 years now. As our publishing department, and was a talent buyer for our campouts and camp-ins as well. Primarily, it's pretty much from signing to release to post to managing accounts, everything, right? So it's like we decide we want to sign a release. I'll work on getting the agreements drafted up and sent over, and working on that side. Then lead our label team, which encompasses marketing, sales, socials, everything like that, so that we can then put the release out for get it ready, and then also the liaise with our PR teams or promo teams. Maybe it's a special release that is European or some other territory focused, and link with that. So managing every single thing top to bottom from the label. And then about a little over a year ago, Dirtybird was acquired by Empire, which is it's a label based in San Francisco, but there's offices. I think we have 15 offices all over the world. Yeah, so it's kind of primarily was born out of hip hop. We put out Kendrick Lamar's first albums and Anderson .Paak's first albums. We have the Aaliyah catalog, Busta Rhymes, but they really kind of wanted to get into the electronic music space, and it's one of those things where it's you don't just say, "Hey, we're selling electronic music now." It has to be kind of obviously a little more genuine and things. So that's kind of where the Dirtybird acquisition came in a year ago, where they kind of came on, and myself and the rest of the team came over, which then now became more of the flag on the moon, I say, to kind of go out to space, and so to speak, where now we're signing other artists, other labels, other brands in the electronics music space. So now, in addition to label manager for Dirtybird, I'm the director of operations and A&R for Empire Dance. So we, for example, we signed Aluna's Noir Fever label. We signed the Soul Clap, their catalog. We signed Martinez Brothers to a multi-track deal. We've signed MJ Nebreda, this crossover artist, for her album and deal. We signed this group, Night Tales, which is an amazing live act, for a multi-track deal. So now that we're trying to basically launching the dance space now here at Empire. So
hell yeah, man. Making moves over there, baby. That's what's up. I love to hear that.
Yeah, man.
So I'm going to ask the question that everybody is wondering. How do you get signed to Dirtybird? Or how do you get signed even to your favorite label, right? But let's talk about specifically with Dirtybird. What do you look for when you're signing somebody? What goes into that decision-making process? Let's start there.
Bottom line, make good music. For Dirtybird, it really doesn't matter how many followers you have or whatever. I think that's the difference between Dirtybird and Empire Dance, where Empire Dance are signing more established acts in a wider net. At Dirtybird, obviously, we have a lane, and just like a Defected or a Tool Room or something like that, right? They have their lanes, and if that's your favorite label, but you just make a good track that catches our ear. We do listen to every single demo that comes in, but we usually kind of know within the first couple beats if we want to listen more, and then usually, maybe test it out to see if how it works. But I mean, end of the day, it's that's kind of what it is. It's just there's no like people that know me, they get in first or anything like that. Like,
Yeah. When you say test it out to see how it works, what do you mean by that?
actually, like play it out. Like maybe Claude will go perform it, or whatever, myself or whatever. Like actually DJ, see how the crowd reacts. Or play it a little bit. Maybe get some other people on the team to listen to it. But we usually know, fairly, pretty soon. Like this song's for us, and so it's a pretty smooth process that way. I think, like I said, Empire Dance, it's a little bit more like, okay, well, the Martinez brothers, right? Obviously, they're established, and we want to get into, develop them in the next part of their careers and work with them. And maybe there's more of a play where we're helping them with A&R, marketing, and sales, and stuff like that, where it's a little bit different type of thing. So,
Yeah.
on the wider level, that's kind of where it might happen a little bit differently. I think for the regular dance labels, like I said, like Dirtybird, Defected, that type of stuff, it's literally just send in good demos. And like again, it's there's no like there's no like secret compartment that says like I know Daron and Barkley or whatever, and I'm gonna get a release on Dirtybird. In fact, many artists that we look up to and we love and we have on the label all the time, we just turn down the demo, not for any other reason than it's just not for us at the time, right? And then there's a lot of demos where we get and we don't sign it, and then it actually literally happened to me yesterday, where an artist sent me a demo like about 3 weeks ago, and we were kind of sitting on it, and then we're like, all right, fuck it, I'm gonna sign it. And I said, he's like, dude, I just put it out on my label, it's on pre-order, so I can't give it to you. So
Damn. Yeah.
That's actually a good thing that the guy didn't wait on. And I encourage, your listeners as well, like, don't send a release of Dirtybird and wait on us, because, it's, and that's what a lot of people I think do. They say, well, I sent this release to Dirtybird and I'm waiting to hear back. And, and then we never send anything, and then the label doesn't go anywhere else. So
how long do you think people should wait?
Well, I mean, I think it's good to start to small. I mean, after a few weeks, honestly, like a couple weeks, then start sending it out wider. And I mean, it might suck sometimes. You wait a couple weeks and you send it. Maybe a smaller label gets it, and then we come calling, and then you feel bad about it. But that's kind of the nature of it. And sometimes, I mean, we get 500 demos to 1,000 demos a week. So it's a lot of music to get through, and we do, like I said, we do listen to every one, but just the actual saying yes and agreeing to it sometimes might be delayed.
Yeah, do you recommend that an artist just sends, if they have a target label that they're going after, that they just send it to that one label, or should they send it out to multiple labels and start the multiple conversations?
I would say like start small, and then as time goes on, whether it be a week, 2 weeks, maybe send a Dirtybird. That's your target. Make it short and sweet, or use our demo form. Whatever. Make sure that whatever label it is, usually they have a demo submission process. Use that. Most of the time, if they don't use that, that's probably the only time I don't listen to something. Or if it's CC'd, they forget to do BCC or something, and I tell it's just a blanket email to me and 100 other label managers. That's the one time where I instantly delete it, because it's like there's not even an effort that way. But I recommend start small, and as time goes on, widen it out. Narrow focus. I really want this to be on Dirtybird or wherever, and then I'm not hearing back. It's been a couple weeks. I'm gonna maybe send it out to this next tier of labels that I would like to be on, and so on and so forth. And in the meantime, I'd say keep creating. I think that's really important too.
Yeah, 100%, man. And what are some best practices for artists when they're submitting music? I think obviously everyone can go to usually there's some sort of demo submission, but also, there's some back doors you can take. You can track down the label manager's email address. Is that like cool to do, or do you suggest everyone just goes through the demo? Obviously, having like an introduction from somebody would be best case scenario, but a lot of people aren't in that position.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, like I said, for us, and I know even a lot of other ones, if you submit it, if they have a demo process and you submit it there, they're going to listen to it. I don't recommend putting, it's just cold calling me. I mean, frankly, my email is out into the world. It's pretty easy probably to find my email, but I don't recommend just randomly emailing me because what's going to happen, I actually have a canned signature that just says, this is where to send the demos. However, if someone says like, hey, like Nick, hey, Darren, I want you to do this. I want you to meet, DJ so-and-so. He's got a demo to send. I might say, hey, and maybe direct you or listen or, put it in. But either way, I'm going to listen to it. The only time I'm not going to listen to it, you just might get that rejection. It might feel like a rejection if you just cold call me and I don't know you and I just say, well, actually use this demo folder, right? So that's kind of what I do. And then, assuming that if it's like for us, we just have a demo Dropbox where you just upload and put your information there. But if not, if you are like, say you did get an intro or you are emailing someone, keep it super short, no more than 2 paragraphs. And that's, so I mean, maybe just highlight a couple, like who you are, like some previous labels. I don't need to hear like, I'm a big fan or anything like that. It's like, hey, you know what, this is there. I've done this, I've done that. I want to check out your song. Might be in the vein of, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, and make sure that downloads are enabled. Send it as a download.
Yeah. And for you guys, you're really just interested in the track and in the song. You're saying that the social media following numbers don't really matter that much. Do you guys go look at somebody's brand and just like check them out just to kind of get a vibe for who they are? Or does that part not really matter either?
For us, no. I mean, honestly, I honestly say like we literally base it on the music. I might only just because I'm interested, but it's not like, it's really like, oh, this song's really good. Like, and then it's just kind of like, let's sign this. And then usually I guess, it's a natural thing within that. I might look him up if I've never heard of him before just to see who he is. And maybe I can discover that, but it's not like, oh, this track's good, but let me go look on his IG and SoundCloud and Spotify and see that. Like, that's not how we base our decisions, right? It's more like, this song is good, I want to sign it, but what is this guy about? Because when I, so.
Yeah. And so when you guys are signing tracks, are you really just signing one-offs, or do you also do you guys ever find artists that you want to invest more in and sign more tracks from? Because, there's like this idea of also having this brand affiliation of like becoming an actual, not just putting out a track on Dirtybird, but becoming a Dirtybird artist or becoming like, a bigger part of whatever brand or label you're trying to be a part of, because sometimes you see artists that are like, they really become part of that crew and they're like going on the tours and they're getting booked on the shows. So, how does that all work? What's the, how would somebody go from being just like, oh, I put out one track on this label versus, oh, this label's actually taking a bigger part in actually investing in me and more like investing in my career?
Right. I mean, it's for the most part, it's all single based, and kind of like one of the things is like, we sign you to Dirtybird, you're part of the flock type thing. And usually we don't really sign the multi-track deals on the Dirtybird side just because we like a little bit of variety. And I'm going to be fairly honest, right? Like, we kind of have a belief that, like, especially in dance music, I think it's different in other genres where you sign to a label and you're like signed to RCA or you're signed to Warner. But in dance music, having a record on Dirtybird, but also having a record on, Defected and Strictly Rhythm and like Trick and, Hot Creations, that's going to do way more for your career than having a million records on Dirtybird, frankly, right? So we understand that nature of our genre business is like, look, yeah, we'll listen to every demo you send us, and we might put 2 or 3 records of you out, but that's if we just like the records. But it's not like, and then when we do every record, we invest a lot in the records. So we're doing a PR campaign, we're doing a promo campaign, we're doing, boosting ads, we're making animations. Like, we are investing a lot around that single, right? So, and then those opportunities for shows and whatever kind of come naturally as the shows happen in the areas or whatever. I mean, obviously they tend to happen because like, hey, you know what? We are signing more records from like a Mike Kerrigan and Nate 08. There's a prime example, right? Like, they first signed us a few years ago. We signed like one track compilation from each of them, and then we signed a single, and then we did a remix, and then it's like, oh, you know, they like that music. We don't like it. We don't sign all of it, but you know, we like their vibes. We've been putting some more music out, having them do remixes. So then Nate and Mike were part of the Claude tour, so that was going on right now. That's just finishing up. So, I mean, and those are kind of, it's a natural, like it's more of an organic way of that happens. I know obviously people always like I want to be on Dirtybird because I want to play the camp out, and I want to be Defected because I want to play Defected Croatia and stuff like that. And I think that's a very good goal, but I also think, you know, it's definitely good to have, there's stepping stones for sure, right? And I think, you know, building your catalog, building your name out there by getting on these labels and other artists, and that's kind of how it organically happens, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So you guys are getting 500 to 1,000 submissions every week. What is it about the tracks that you do end up signing? What do those songs have? Like, what's the edge and what's the thing that you're really looking for when something actually does get signed?
They sound sonically well, right? Like, I don't recommend sending a pre-master or something that's mixed kind of bad, right? Like, if they sound good, that's going to get us to here. And then being unique, right? Like, I mean, I don't know how many times people are like, hey, here's a track I made for Dirtybird. And it's like, there's even kind of a stigma about us in the sense of who we are, what our genres are. But if you really look at our catalog, there's very, very wide range of genres in there. You know what I mean? And a very wide range of artists. I think, you know, obviously the Fishers and the Shibasons and stuff, which are great records, but those are the biggest ones. So people kind of, you get that connotation of like, oh, well, this is what the rest of the label sounds like. But if you listen, actually go back and listen to even what we put out this year, you know, there's some deep house in there. There's some techno. There's like, you know, almost some indie dance type stuff. I mean, it's very wide ranging. So like I said, it's kind of just like good music. I mean, I think at this point, it's a little bit more of like what our tastes are more than anything and what we like. But we also understand, like, you know what, this is going to be a huge record, we think. And maybe us personally, we also have to separate that from ourselves. Of like, maybe me personally, I wouldn't DJ it, or Claude might not play it, but we also know that it's going to be a big record, but it's also going to be a big record, but it's also still fits within our brand, so to speak, where like we're not trying to make a, you know, we're not trying to put like a big vocal track out, but it's, you know what I mean? It's
I love what you said about artists that are making tracks specifically for Dirtybird or specifically for a label, which is so common. You're like, I want to get signed to this label because I respect this label, I like them, I want to be a part of it, so I'm going to push my creation in that direction, thinking that this is what they're going to want to sign. And then ultimately what you do is you make some shit that sounds exactly like everything else that they're already putting out. And it's like, you're not really being authentic as an artist at that point. And I'm always going to advocate artists to be like, yo, make your shit, make your own unique lane of creativity that lights you up, that's authentic, that's something that you can make, and it's like an authentic self-expression. And then figure out, okay, maybe this is a good fit for this label or for that label. But when you're doing it the other way around and you're creating something for the label, it's like you just end up being a fucking copycat. And that's why there's so much shit out there that all sounds the same.
Honestly, that was really my answer when you asked me. It's like being unique, because that's exactly it, right? Like, I think you as an artist, you have to go in and you have to create what you want to create, right? Like, a painter can't go in and be like, I want to paint like Leonardo da Vinci, right? Like, it's just like, you're just gonna, you know what I mean? It's like, you really, what do you want to create? What is going to make you happy? What's going to make you want to get up and go in that studio and like really try to do that, right? I feel like that is the most important thing. I mean, even an example, Rebuke. You know, we put out a record several years ago called The Pipe. And it came out, like, he did Along Came Polynaut Creations, one of his first records, in The Pipe, which is, you know, it was his sound, right? It's very Rebuke sound. And we put out a couple more records, and he had a very specific sound, and now he has like one of the biggest records on, you know, to Afterlife right now that's going crazy. That's still his sound, but to be able to go from Dirtybird, Hot Creations, and now Afterlife, where
Yeah.
he's not compromising who he is, right? He's not compromising what he is, who he is as an artist. He doesn't even need to use an alias. He's still using his name Rebuke, right? So
Sick.
that's just an example that, just create what you want to create, and the labels will find a home for it that they should.
Yeah, I love that, man. Really, really good advice. So let's talk about putting tracks out, right? Signing a song is one thing, and then helping that song become successful is another. And I think it's really great if you can get signed to a label and you have that partner and
Right.
they're behind the scenes to like use their connections and send their DJ promo out and all the amazing shit that you guys can do. You know, you've been in the game for a long time. You've got a budget to put behind it. But for an artist that's self-releasing, what are some things that we could share with them about how you guys would roll out a track on a professional level that maybe artists that aren't getting signed could also implement into their strategy? Because this is something I think a lot of people are trying to figure out. Like, how do I release a song properly? How do I get attention? How do I get plays? So,
Right.
what would you suggest for independent artists that don't have that luxury yet?
Tell the story. I think that is the biggest thing, is be a storyteller, and a storyteller in the sense of, like, as you're talking about the release or promoting the release, telling the story through whether it be pictures or imagery or videos or whatever. But you want to have the audience be able to relate to you in some way. Like just saying, "Hey, my song's out now on Beatport. Go buy it. Here's the link." No one gives a shit, right? Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
so
like
what?
a billion fucking songs are out there. I think it's like, "Hey, you know what? I was inspired by XYZ, or I was fucking around with this special MPC or some tool, whatever it is, right? Or my grandpa died, and I'm presenting him. I mean, whatever it is. The point is like, there's a story attached to that song, and I think the creator and the artist should go find out what that's when they're making something and they have something done. No matter, I mean, there's the story there, whatever it is, right? How it got to that end point where you finally said you're done. There's some level of story in there, whether you just happen to be at a friend's studio or whatever it is, right? Then figure out how you can relay that story and tell that. And like I said, tell it via certain types of media on your own channels. Again, it's going back to that genuineness and like being like true to yourself, and like if it's from a genuine place of like, hey, I made this and it was a really vulnerable moment or a real happy moment, I'm feeling great and want to make a feel good song for the summer, you know what I mean? I think people are relate to that, and then whether they're shopping on Beatport, listening to on Apple Music, or watching YouTube videos, they will go and find that song out. It's not going to be, clicking a link from it, right? So that's why I feel like if you can tell a story that you get audiences to relate to, it's going to be much more successful. And not only more successful because you want to get the people to come back and get invested in you as an artist, as a person, right? And I think that's where where you're going to see the biggest success.
Yeah, and if your story is, I made this song because I want to get signed to Dirtybird, and I just made some shit that sounds exactly like what they're putting out, that story fucking sucks.
Yeah,
it's like,
no one, people read that story before. It's in the used library section. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, man. And I think, I think that's so important as well for artists to also, this is why you got to be living your life. It's
right.
so... It's such a great thing to be relentlessly focused on your goals and grind and hustle, because that's what it takes. At the same time, if you isolate yourself as an artist and you only live in your studio and you never come out and you never go live your life, then you don't have any stories to tell, right? You don't have you got to go get inspiration from the world. And so there's a balance there. It's like you got to be relentlessly focused. You got to put the hours in. And this is why I think you got to cut out all the bullshit from your life, the things that are distracting you, the things that are just the time wasters. But then you also need to have those weekends where you can go off and go to the beach and go have fun and go on some dates and go to some shows and go get your heart broken and go live your fucking life, So there's a balance there to find. too much of living your life and not enough work isn't great, but also too much work and not living your life isn't going to ever give you a story to tell.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of and going out to the beach and hanging out, you never know who you might meet out there, and you know what I mean. Like it might actually help you, and I mean I think a lot of it, even like when I was coming up and trying to be a DJ 30 years ago, whatever, here in San Francisco, is like it was like you go out to the parties that you want to play at, and you just hang out, you party with everyone, and like eventually you meet so and so, and eventually after a while, like, hey, come play our show, open for us. You know what I mean? And it's like that with music too. It's like go to the shows, go to where the people are, and and I understand too that there's a thing people in the studio tend to also be a little bit more introverted as well. So sometimes it might be a little bit more challenging to put yourself out there and to network, quote unquote. But there's a genuineness in that too, right? Like going out there and just dance, or go out there and just drink, or whatever it is, or just listen to the music. I mean, fortunately, we're in a community that's very open and I think very accepting. I think we're lucky in that way, to where people are standing against a wall and someone can still talk to them. Totally. But be out there, like you said, it's just like be out there and just be a part of it.
Yeah, we've talked about that a few times on the podcast before. The importance of being a part of the community, being a part of the culture, contributing to it. Right? It's funny. It's like, if you want to go play a club, you have a club that you want to play at. Even think about that word. It's a club. You got to go be a part of the club. Go join the club.
Exactly.
Go join the community and show up. And it's super important. Again, there's balance there too. There's people that they just fucking go out all the time and then they don't actually work on any music. They're a little bit too extroverted. But if you're never going out, you're never being a part of it, you also don't understand it as much too, like even for myself, like even as a coach that's working with artists, like I still got to go get on the dance floor and like be in the energy, and I'm like I gotta continue to feel the energy of this scene that in my own unique special way, like I am a part of, and so if I don't ever go out, I'm gonna be disconnected from it.
And I mean, quite frankly, a lot of people that are coming out to the Dirtybird shows and the barbecues and our events and campouts or whatever, I've made connections that way, right? Like we're sure we might not sign everything or even see them at once, but I see them every year. I see them when they're out. I know who they are. It's great. They come up to me. I mean, we're all pretty open, like we're all like, I love talking to people and stuff like that, right? But that's just part of it. It's like, I mean, chocolate sushi. Prime example. He's he's this character, but artist, whatever. He's been going to Dirtybird shows for 6-7 years. He's just been a nation thing. We invite him out now, but he just won a Point Blank scholarship with us that we did, partnership with Point Blank, where it's like an actual scholarship, and it was like we got a bunch of demos, and it was like, in addition to just his talent, we knew him and we knew what passion he had for it, where it made sense for that. And that's literally him being part of our community for so long. I mean, he doesn't have a record on Dirtybird yet, but, we know who he is. He's still the thing. We posted about him on our socials, and he gets a lot of gigs. People know him from from parties, because people know him in that way. So, like you said, it's a club. And not an exclusive club. It's a club that anyone can join. Just go, be a part of it.
Yeah, I love that. And I forgot that you guys are up in the Bay Area, San Francisco. I'm from Santa Rosa myself, personally, so not too far away. NorCal kid. How would you describe the scene up there and the culture of dance community? I lived in LA forever, so I'm really only familiar with that area. Like, how is it different up there?
It's changed a lot. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, like I said, I live in the city here. I started throwing parties here in San Francisco, like back in 2004, 2003. And I ran a party here called Stompy for years. And it was a much different time then. And there were so many things going on. And it definitely reached a peak. And, I will say COVID kind of killed a lot of things. And now there's only a couple clubs, like there's the Midway and Monarch, and there's there's not a lot of there's not a lot of, it used to be you would go out on Friday and there'd be a mini club with like 50 people packed. It was these little pockets of communities. And now I feel like it's gone to just like, all right, well, the club is just going to book the person that sells tickets.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what this scene has kind of gotten away for. I think it's still a little bit down there in LA with like Brownies and Lemonade and Lights Down Low and, you know, those type of parties where there's still like, it's a community, but that kind of community I feel here in San Francisco at least is missing as much as it used to be, where it was like, you know, you could go to a Control party, a Stompy party, a Sunset party, and they could all happen on the same day, the same weekend, and it wouldn't cannibalize each other, you know? So
Yeah. Well, it sounds like there's an opportunity in the market. Whoever is living in Northern California, up and coming, you know, DJs and producers, there is an opportunity to start throwing some small parties and creating your own scene. A lot of times we're out there, we just want to get plugged into what the big boys are doing. But, you know, I mean, think about Space Yacht. I remember getting to see Space Yacht come up from the ground up in LA, and it was just like a little homey locals like industry party kind of thing, and now there's a massive brand. So I'm hoping that this seed, I know there's one person listening to this right now that their fucking gears are turning and the seed is planted. I've even thought about it out here in Austin. I live in Austin, Texas, and there's like no real bass music scene, and like I don't really want to be a promoter, but like I know there's just an opportunity right now for somebody to just fucking own that scene. And so, you know, go start throwing some parties. You know, I have a client. I got to shout out one of my clients, Evan Agony. He is actually in San Diego, which is a different market in itself. You know, there's a couple big clubs, but he just went and he's like a hip hop kind of like hip hop vibe, you know, like Suicide Boys and Puya kind of vibe. And he was like, yo, there's no scene here. I'm going to go fucking throw my own party. And he just threw his first party out there. So be an entrepreneur, be adventurous, you know?
Dirtybird started as literally a free party in the park, you know? Christian Martin took a loan, maxed out a credit card for a sound system, and started throwing parties in the park, and Grillson was making tacos and for free. And
so
then
sick.
Like, you know, you did that for years, and then it got so big to where the cops wouldn't even let us do that anymore. And now we started doing monthly parties that were selling 5,000 tickets, you know? But the point is like, you can also create too. I mean, hopefully you are around, and again, going out, being part of the club, so to speak, go to the club, you meet people and like collaborate, collectively. Like, hey, you know what, let's do a party at this small little bar down the street or wherever, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's probably most important too. I think on a bigger scale is like, I mean, if you want to start a label, I always say there's very successful labels, but there's a lot of successful brands. You can't just like, you know, have a label and put music out. It's like a Space Yacht, right? Sure, they put out music, or, you know, Dirtybird, or even, you know, again, say Defected, or these other things, but it's like there's a brand. The music is more of like the vertebrae, as I always say, or like, that's the thing that drives all the thing, whether it be the events, the merchandise, the publishing, the, you know, whatever that, all the things that you can put around that. I mean, they're nothing without the music, right? But if you're just trying to put out music doesn't make a lot of money. I mean, newsflash, right? Like it says, like, I mean,
just,
you know,
just FYI, guys.
Just FYI. I mean, it's like putting, you know, a very successful record on Dirtybird is not going to make you a millionaire or anything like that, right? I mean, what it could do is launch a career, so you can do the shows, or you can sell merch, or, you know, you get signed to a publishing deal, or a, you know, brand commercial, right? But the point is like, and I think even not just as a label, but as an artist, and that's kind of telling your story. It's like, what is your brand, right? Are you the recluse in the studio, like, you know, some other artist, like a Aphex Twin or something, where, you know, he's the anti thing? Or are you like Fred Again, right? Where you make everything in your Apple headphones in the park and on subways and stuff like that. Like, what is your brand, whether it be an artist or label? And I think that's where you're going to find, again, where people relate to you and they'll want to come back. And no matter what you put out, they're at least going to listen to it or hit the like button or share it or whatever. And that's really what you're trying to do. I mean, I think nowadays it's not about like getting a PR company and going to a billion different outlets to write about Deron Delgado is now signed to Dirtybird, and he has this new release called Such a Cool Track, and it's, whatever.
Yeah,
it's like...
It's not, no one cares. It's not a story.
No one gives a shit. Yeah. Right. But it's like, hey, you know what? Nick is sharing Darren's content, and like now, Johnny is sharing Nick's content, and like, Sandra's, like creating a create video on TikTok for it. Like that is, the time is now, man. It's like, that's what the world we're living in now. I mean...
Yeah, and I like this perspective as well, that like, because there's so much resistance to content, right? I hear a lot of artists are like, I don't want to be a content creator. There's so much resistance to social media, and I think you have to realize that like this phone in your hand is such a powerful tool. It's either gonna be your biggest enemy and you're gonna get sucked into doom scrolling and you're gonna waste all your fucking time on it, or you can create an audience on it, and that's really exciting. And there's tools that are out there and they're free, and there's basically no excuse to not be out there creating content. And the thing is, you are like, your music also is content.
That's
right?
exactly what I was going to say,
is a piece of content, and then there's just different types of content that you need to create in order to get that music out. But I think it's a really great perspective shift to recognize that like, if you're making music, you are already a content creator. And I know that that's such a bad word that people don't want to own and admit. I don't want to be a content creator, or I don't want to be an influencer. And it's like, wait, no, like, have some fucking influence, right? Like, that's your goal. The only way you're going to have a brand that agents are interested in booking, or that, people want to collaborate with you, is if you have a following and you have an audience and you're doing some cool shit, and people know about the cool shit that you're doing. So, it's like, seeing the whole thing as a creative process. You're creating this brand, and the music is one piece of that, right? The social media is another piece of that. Doing partnerships with labels is another piece of that. But see the bigger picture of it all. Yeah,
and that's exactly it. It's like I was just gonna say, it's like, your music is content, whether you like it or not. You're literally, that's what you're creating, and I know content is a dirty word, but it also is the lifeblood of this whole system of everything, right? I mean, there's a reason why Afterlife sells out their shows, because of their crazy videos that people post, and like, so I don't be afraid of it. I mean, what's hard, obviously, is finding what your voice is. Like, I think, how do you want to be genuine, and like, oh, I can't just get on front of the camera and say, hey, look at me, I'm so cool, type thing. And like, I think that's the biggest problem or challenge, I would say, is for artists and creators to be able to jump that fence to a content creator now that's outside of what they're doing to promote themselves. Because I feel people I don't want to come off as self-promoting, and I don't want to come off as like, I'm too cool for school. But then some people, that's how they want to do it. But again, there can be a genuineness about it.
And the problem is, everybody is watching what everybody else is doing and thinking that that's the way that I need to do it. In the same way that they're listening to what Dirtybird is putting out, so they think, oh, I need to make this because that's how I get signed, that's how I become successful. Oh, people are doing this thing on TikTok, so that's what I need to be doing because that's what's getting numbers and that's what's getting plays. So as long as you're chasing, the trends, as long as you're chasing what other people are doing, you're not 99 out of 100 times, you're not going to be in alignment with your own authenticity, your own creativity, your own ideas, your own authentic self. So it's like, so much of the work, I think, is about fuck what everybody else is doing and start tuning in and getting really clear on who am I and what's my story and what's my message and what do I believe in and what do I think is cool and what do I want to say, and then let me get out there and say it in a way that feels good for me, and the right people will find you.
Right. I mean, and that's trickles down to the music too, right? Exactly how you make your music. That's exactly the attitude you should have when you make it, and that's exactly the attitude you should have when you promote it. Like, don't try to be the other person when you're in the studio, and don't try to be another person when you're on socials. Like, people see right through that stuff, and you lose followers from that, right? But if you have a genuineness about you, I mean, one of the biggest music artist influencers, probably you can argue, Diplo, right? Like, he has his own style of the way he posts and the way he thinks. It's uniquely him. You can't replicate what a Diplo, you know what I mean? But, you know what I mean? Like down to like someone, everyone has their thing. Like you said, like an Afterlife, or even us, Dirtybird, what we post on it's unique to us. it's not something you can copy and replicate. It's something that really, in order to have the longevity, you really have to find what your own voice is in the studio and outside of it.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to come back to releasing records. And I'd love to learn a little bit about what that looks like for you guys. What are the things that you do to really properly put out a record and make sure that it, gets plays and gets attention?
Yeah, I mean, it starts before the release, right? I mean, it's like getting it out in our promo list, getting it out to DJs, making sure so-and-so has it to listen to it, having our PR team kind of talk about it, try to pitch it like, hey, maybe get an interview or a podcast or a DJ mix or something like that to kind of promote it. Then once release day hits, then, obviously have artwork. We usually will have animated versions of the artwork because like on Instagram or other social platforms, static's not as popular and engaging as something that's moving. I mean, the best thing is when you have a clip of someone so playing it and then you can capture that moment and use that to share. Then afterward, it's rolling out. Then it's telling that story of what that song's about, and like telling that story via videos, via maybe behind the track feature, maybe doing a takeover. If one of our artists is playing at a festival or big show for the weekend on a release date, hey, why don't you do a takeover and have fun stuff, see what you're doing at the festival.
What's the takeover? Like taking over what?
Like a Dirtybird channel, right? We had, I think the last one we had was Joanna Magic. She did a song with Small Town DJs called Energy, and she was playing, which is a great song, by the way. It's one of my favorites this year. You should check it out. She was playing some festival in Canada or something. She's from up there, and she's like, hey, you know what? You're going to be up there all weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Here's the login to Dirtybird Instagram account, right? Like, do a story takeover, and then, she's able to tell that story and see, and people can see who she is. And now that engages and like, oh, this is this artist. It's not just a name. Because also, it's the music that really isn't a face or a name. I think able to see some of that personality and, especially her, she's got, bubbly personality and she's very positive and, that type of thing. People are to see that, they can relate to it more and maybe they'll listen to it if they haven't already or that type of thing. And then, boosting, the typical like ads of like boosting songs, or maybe if a song is like kind of bubbling up, where maybe we'll activate some influencers on like TikTok or Instagram, where we kind of like invest some money in like an influencer campaign to have people start using the track more to create videos around it and stuff like that.
That whole influencer marketing world is really interesting, and I feel like a lot of people probably don't know too much about that. Like, so the idea is that, rather than just paying ads and you can make your own content and you can put some money behind it and push that through your own channels, you can go to somebody else's channel, like an influencer that has 100,000 or 1 million followers, and say, hey, like, incorporate my song into your content in some kind of seemingly organic way, but it's an advertisement at the end of the day. I think it's super cool. I think it's such a cool thing, such a cool like model. What kind of influencers would you guys typically work with, and what would make sense for electronic music?
We actually had this conversation, this lengthy one today, our team, about this, because it's like, it usually has to be something that's maybe already kind of bubbling up. It's hard to create a spark. It's more easy to keep the fire going, right? Like, it's hard to say, hey, you know what, for Energy, for example, it's like, feel my energy, let's go spend a bunch of money to get influencers to make this track around this Energy song. It's a much bigger uphill battle as opposed to like, we have this song from Vanessa called One Pill that's like, we're doing really, really well now. It's like 2 months out, but it's just crushing it. And it's starting to get bubble up on the social side of things. So that's like some, hey, you know what, this is already capitalizing on it. Let's reach out to these artists, fans and stuff, and these influencers and see, hey, here's, budget, here's a few $100 depending on, or whatever it is, depending on your profile. Again, use this in a more organic way. And then, the TikTok algorithm, which is freaking mind-blowing to me. I'm the first to admit I don't know anything about that platform. That's why we have people within our team that do know it very well. You know what I mean? But then they can take it and then like one it takes one little spark and then all of a sudden, other people are using your song to create their video of it and or use it in whatever way. So
for sure, yeah, that viral power of TikTok is pretty wild. It's definitely worth, I think, any artist that's out there. It's like learn your tools, like learn your marketing. If you don't have a label, if you don't have a manager, you are your label, you are your manager. So it's your responsibility to be your marketing department, and you should be learning how do these things work, right? How do Instagram Reels work, and especially TikTok, like. It's so funny, back to that whole idea of just resistance. I don't want to be a content creator. It's like, when you switch your mindset and recognize like, if I can crack the code on this shit, this can literally like change my fucking life. So let's at least dabble a little bit.
How bad do you want it?
And study it. It can be authentic. It can be fun. You can do it in a cool way that isn't cheesy also,
Yeah, no, and that's it. But again, it's like, how bad do you want it? If you don't want it that bad, then you don't want to learn it, then maybe you're fine to just be stuck and just getting no responses to your demos or no one engagement. But, you do have to, it's work that has to go into it. I mean, I know so many talented artists. I know more talented artists that aren't successful than I do least talented artists that are way successful.
And what is it about those less talented artists that make them successful?
I mean, just a million different reasons, but to sum it up, their story hasn't resonated. You know what I mean? Like, their story hasn't resonated where people have engaged as much. I'll give you an example, right? There's an artist I work with, I love. He's amazing. I've been almost been a mentor for years with him. His name's DJ Eclipse. He is such a talented producer. He makes such great records. And he just hasn't had his moment yet. Like, it's just like he's working for years. He's done so many great things, had great support, but he hasn't had a moment yet. And then like about a month ago, he posted. He's a very he talks privately. He talks a lot. He's very passionate about things, and he just did this like video finally on Instagram where just like sat down and just talked about the state of the industry. And he's African American and talking about how like. That music for the people of color, they've where are they? And honestly, like that video that was going viral. And it's like then he started doing a couple more of them, and now it's like something shifted a bit, right? It's like, you know what I mean? He wants it so bad, and he has put in the work in the studio, and he's done that, but sometimes it just takes that little thing where it doesn't even relate to your music. And it's a good and bad thing, right? Because it's nowadays, before it's like the music really was the thing that you could be successful on.
Everybody's talking about what it was like before.
Yeah.
Everybody's living in the past of like, oh, it used to be that like you could just run your music. Well, okay, cool. Whenever you're ready to get into fucking 2023, this is how it works now. And all the energy that is spent talking about how things used to be, or feeling like a victim, or feeling like, oh my God, this is so hard, I wish I didn't have to do that. All of that is energy that is being wasted when the other people that are out there that are saying, well, okay, this is the game now. Let's learn the rules and let's show the fuck up and let's play the game, because that's the only way we're going to win.
Totally. Exactly it. The rules are different now. The people used to kick balls from the 20-yard line. Now they kick it from the 30-yard line. It's like
and it's like even 10 years before that it was different, and 20 years before that it was different. Like people were putting out literally records, and then they were selling cassettes, and then we were selling CDs, and it's like the longer we sat around and complain about technology changing and nobody's buying CDs anymore, it's like, all right, all of that is time wasted when you could have been figuring out how to, like when the record business shifted, that was such a great example of it. The record industry was fighting illegal file sharing. They were like, no, like we can't, this whole MP3 thing, we can't like download music, fuck that. And it's like, if they could have saved years if they just got on board and were like, all right, how do we monetize this shit? How do we change, like, technology is changing. This is where it's at. How do we figure it out? Those are the the innovators and just the people that are going to always be ahead of the curve, that are looking at like, well, where are things at? And not only that, where are things going? Like, we got to be 2 steps ahead. Where's shit going next?
Yeah. I mean, this business changes by the second. I mean, even just from last year, what we were talking about is much different than what we're talking about for next year. And it's just the nature of the thing. And you can be stuck in like, I'm a vinyl DJ only, and I'm only, but that's cool, but you're going to lose an audience, and you got to grow with it. Rather than try to like put your feet in the sand and say, no, it's great here, it's so nice here, let's just stay here in this beautiful island, but that island is going to cut you off, and people are swimming other places.
And at the same time, it's like, you know what, if you like that little corner of where it's at, and you like that little small piece of the pie, and you're like, hey, I want to do things this way because I'm actually excited about it and I like it, and you're not complaining about the rest of it, you're not being a victim, then cool. Like, own that. Be a vinyl DJ and like own your little corner of the 100%. Island. Fuck yeah. But if you want to be a headliner, if you want to be one of the biggest artists in the world, which I know a lot of people that are listening to this have that dream of like, I want to be touring the fucking world. Like, okay, cool. You got to build a brand and build an audience and build a business that's going to set you up to tour that. So you got to be 2 steps ahead, as you can see, I get a little worked up. I'm passionate about any kind of like victim mentality. It's just like, stop complaining and get on board.
Yeah. Same thing. I fully agree.
So how long has Dirtybird been around, and how long have you been a part of it?
Dirtybird started in 2005, so we're going on, I think, our 18th year, and I started, I believe, in like 2015, so I think this is going on my 9th year. It will be next year.
Dude, congrats. That's awesome. I mean, almost a decade at Dirtybird, almost 2 decades of the label existing. That's incredible. What do you think has allowed it to grow and survive this changing climate of the music industry, right? Not only has it survived the music industry, but it's continued to grow and establish itself as just such a dominant label and brand. Like, what has been the recipe for success for you guys?
Genuineness, honestly. Frankly, we've been laughed out of the room some places, but we're still who we are. But we've been, praised and awarded in multiple other areas. And I think even though, like if you look at our catalog, it's very ranging, but it's still true to us. We never chase the hit. And also, I think our community has been so strong. The fact that like people make their own merchandise, they're the ones that are our evangelists for us. I think that is probably what's been the biggest thing, right? Because it's when you have other people that take on the brand as their own, then it's not just you. You have these people that are really passionate about you and what you're doing. They might not like every song or go to every show, but they tell their friends and they listen and they're an active part of the community. And we, I think, more importantly, kind of give back too. We have our bird feed service, which is for our super fans. We always are doing contests. We're always trying to get our fans involved, and our artists aren't behind the stage and up on a BJ booth on the mass behind thing. We try to get like at the campouts, and you can play ping pong with Artelon and like ring toss with DJ Glenn, whatever, right? Like it's kind of breaking down that wall a bit where we're equals, right? Like we all have this job, but our job is to put the music out, but your job is just as important to listen and to be a part of it, right? It's not like we're so cool, we're putting this music out, lucky you that you get to listen to it. You know what I mean? I feel like it's we both are equals in this success of this thing, and we're like we need you just as much as I hope you need us,
Yeah. I love that you have people that are such hardcore brand ambassadors and advocates that they're making their own merch. I think that's so cool. If somebody wears a Rage Against the Machine shirt, that says something about them, right? That says that like, I don't like the government, I'm like anti-government, I stand for, fuck the system. Like it says something about them, right? When I go out and I wear my death metal shirts with my cut off sleeves, like it says some shit. I'm like, I'm a fucking, I'm a metalhead, I'm a badass, right? If somebody wears a Dirtybird shirt that maybe they made or that they bought, what does that say about them?
I mean, I'll give you an example. My mom, she's what, 70 something years old. Of course, I give her shirts and she wears it all the time. She'll be at a Starbucks in Portland, and like the barista with the nose piercing and tattoos and whatever, like, oh, what are your Dirtybird? I love Dirtybird. I go to the shows and blah, 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 blah. And like, my mom says she gets more people to come up to her when she's wearing a Dirtybird hat or shirt or whatever. Yeah. And I mean, I think that's just it. It's like and myself included, like when I mean, that's pretty much what the only thing I wear nowadays seems to be just a Dirtybird shirt or whatever. But when I'm out and people see it, and it's just kind of like, hey, I know you guys. They don't even know who I am at all. They just see me wearing a Dirtybird shirt, and it's like, hey, we have something in common. Like, we're part of this community that is fun, and like we like silly things, and it's like, it's not so serious to where like I'm so cool. It's more of like, it's the equal. Like, you like Dirtybird, I love Dirtybird too. Like, let's all be friends.
Yeah. I love that, man. I love that. Well, you guys have done an amazing job. I'm a huge fan of Dirtybird as well, and it's it's funny too, because I think I'd say, like, musically, like, I like a lot of the heavier techno shit. I like the Afterlife sound, that kind of stuff. But as a brand, like, I love Dirtybird, because it's like, like you said, it's fun, it's silly, it's like it makes me feel good when I see it, or if I go to a show, like, so y'all are killing it. Y'all have built something really amazing over there. What's next for Dirtybird? What are you guys working on and working towards now?
Well, tomorrow is actually today is the first single, and that's kicking off the Walker and Royce album, their sophomore album. On Friday, I don't know when those will air, but Friday the 3rd, it'll be the first part of their 3-part album called No Big Deal. They're currently touring on it right now. So, really excited for those guys. They've become, that's an art. Those are artists too, where we watch them come from making songs about in the butt and like these really funny things, to now working with Diplo and Channel Trace and Reggie Watts and Harm Franklin, and to see them grow from the time that we started putting their music out 6-7 years ago to selling out the Shrine and like playing all these crazy, sold out tours. And so, that's a really big, exciting time for us. I mean, like I said, those guys are seriously family to us, and really close friends, and being able to watch this next part of their career and put this album out, which is a really amazing album, and it's something that is totally different. And that's the thing about Dirtybird. I mean, there's not one Dirtybird quote record sound on there. I mean, it's almost not even like a Walker and Royce record, but it's very danceable. It's if you like heavy sounds, you're gonna love it. But so that'll be rolling out beginning this week. We've got a couple other cool singles coming from Steve Lawler, who's the first time he'll be on the label. He did a song with Aquarius Heaven. We did this artist K-Stim, Kenny Summit, with Roberto Rodriguez, this from German, kind of almost like, again, like the sounds. It's not a Dirtybird record, and I'm saying that not as a bad word, but I'm always having to fight the connotation, because I hear it all the time and I see it out there of like, oh, Dirtybird is what it is. But me, as like someone that helps guide the brand, it's really important to me to help try to educate people. Like, go listen to our catalog and see what we have coming. That shows our variety. So
yeah, awesome, man. Well, I'm excited to hear the new releases. I was able to catch Claude Von Stroke last time he was here in Austin, and he threw down, which was amazing. And so I still have yet to go to like a Dirtybird, actual party, like campouts or one of those. So I'll have to make my way out to one of those eventually. But I really appreciate you taking the time. It's so great to reconnect with you. I hope that everyone got value out of this conversation today. And
for sure.
Good luck with everything over at Dirtybird.
Thanks a lot, Nick. Appreciate your time, man. Good chat.
Feel the vibe in this.